Mr. Freeman? Mr. Freeman, is there any way we can turn the lights back on?
Want it back on?
Yeah, people tend to fall asleep when we get back.
Oh, we can turn them on. Turn them on. You want a big introduction, or are you good?
So what?
You want a big introduction, or are you
Give it
good?
to me, baby. Let's go.
Because I have no clue, so you
All right. Just say, hey, this is David. Cool. All right. Real quick, before we get started, show of hands. How many of you were present for the presentation I did April 2nd at the high school auditorium? Okay, like a quarter of you. All right. You're going to get to see the same intro again today, so do me a favor and pretend like you haven't seen it before and laugh at the corny jokes like you haven't seen them already. But we're going to start off the same way that I start every single classroom presentation that I do, anytime I go to a conference and give a keynote, and even every wrestling practice that I coach. I always start the same way, whether I've got 5 people in the room or 500 people in the room. So everybody, take whatever's in your hands out of your hands and stand up for it real quick. This will only take 20 seconds, I promise. All right, we call this the clap clap. And what the clap clap is we get a slow clap going, and then we build faster, and we get faster and faster and faster. And at the end, I say 1 clap ready, and you clap once. I say 2 claps ready, you clap twice. Got it? All right, with me. Here we go. Ready? 1 clap ready, 2 claps ready, 3 claps ready. Not bad, right? All right, take a seat. Take a seat. Now, why did we do that? Well, we do it for 3 specific reasons. Number 1, it kind of gets the energy level up in the room, make sure everybody's awake, everybody's ready to go. Number 2, science has shown us that even the most basic of kinesthetic movements gets your heart pumping, gets oxygen going in your brain, gets you primed and ready to learn. And number 3 is admittedly selfish. When I get home tonight and Lindsay says, well, honey, how did it go? I can say, well, at least they all stood up and clapped. So, okay. Now, when you first meet someone, you've never met them before, within the first 30 seconds, they're always going to ask you the same 2 questions. What are those 2 questions? Anybody know? Yeah, what's your name? That's the first one. What's the second one? They always ask. What do you do? Right. Now, if you want someone to immediately forget you, okay, if you want that conversation to be over with and you never talk to that person again, when they ask you what do you do, tell them your occupation. Tell them what you do for a living. For example, if somebody says, oh, hey, David, it's nice to meet you. What do you do? And I go, I teach gym. then immediately I've invited them to conjure up whatever preconceived notions they have of what a gym teacher is. However, maybe, in fact, just take a second. Think about what your mental image is when I say I teach gym, right? It's perhaps Coach Cutler from the Wonder Years. Now, it has been a while since high school anatomy class, but I'm not sure that's an accurate representation of the female reproductive system. Or maybe for all you 90s kids out there, maybe think of that PE teacher from Beavis and Butthead. And when I get called to do an hour sub job for a math class, that's really not too far off. Or, God forbid, your visualization is someone that looks like this. But regardless of what your preconceived notions are, when I tell you what I do for a living, I've immediately invited you to imagine all of those memories you have and all those stereotypes that you have. However, if you want to make a real, meaningful connection with someone, and you want that conversation to go on longer than 30 seconds, instead of telling someone what you do for a living, tell them what you believe. And so what one of my conversations might look like is, oh, hey, David, nice to meet you. What do you do? And I would say, well, let me tell you what I believe. I believe that everyone needs a coach in life. Everyone needs a coach in life. And everyone needs to be able to receive coaching, because coachable students become employable adults. And coachable adults are happier. Coachable adults are better at their job. Coachable adults get along better with their coworkers. Coachable adults move their way up the corporate ladder. And uncoachable adults move their way into the unemployment line. And so I found that the way that I can make the biggest impact on my world is through coaching. And so that's what I do at Washburn Road. And that might sound like an intense way to introduce yourself to someone, but I promise it leads to a lot more meaningful conversations than just saying, I teach gym. And I was once told that the best metric, the best way to tell somebody's overall BS level, is to count how many times they stand up in front of a group and talk. And this is my 3rd time in the last 7 days, so what does that tell you? But in reality, I'm going to try to keep as much BS out of this, guys, as I possibly can, because there certainly is no one way to do anything. I'm going to show you my worldview and my perspective and the things that have worked for me and for my people. And if some of it resonates with you, then awesome. Take it and run with it. We'll run with it. And if all of it resonates with you, then success, right? That's why I'm here. If none of it resonates with you, I apologize. Come see me afterwards, and I will buy your lunch today. But that being said, I do have a confession to make. I'm a thief. I steal constantly. I steal from adults. I steal from kids. I steal from other coaches. I do it every single day, and I don't feel the least bit bad about it. I steal from everyone. And if you're a good teacher, I'd be willing to bet that you're a thief too. In some capacity. Who in here teaches math? Anybody? Okay, the majority of us, right? Yeah, the vast majority of us do. Okay, did you invent the techniques that you use? No, you stole them from someone. Okay, all of us teach language arts or reading in some capacity. None of us invented the English language. We all steal from other people all the time. And the key is find the right things to steal, tweak them so they work for whoever your people are, and then make them so good that other people want to steal them from you. So that being said, the vast majority of the things you're going to hear today, they came from other people, specifically John Gordon and Kevin Cush. But as Michael Port says, you don't have to be different to make a difference. So today I'm going to share with you the things that other people have both directly and indirectly taught me. I'm going to share them with you, and I can make you a promise. If you decide to be coachable, when you leave here today, you will all look at the world just a little bit differently. Now, Michael Port is the author of the best-selling book, Steal the Show, and yes, he does have a ridiculously good-looking haircut, but he's also a podcaster and a speaking coach. And on one episode of his podcast, a young lady calls up and she says, Michael, I've got this big presentation coming up. I'm really, really nervous. What can I do to be really, really good? Question. He says, what can I do to be really, really good? He says, well, caller, you can't be good. And then after a long, almost uncomfortable pause, he says, I don't mean that you're not going to be good. What I mean is you can't be good as an objective. All you can try to be as an objective is helpful. If you try to be as helpful as possible as your objective, then you can't help but be good. And so quite simply, that is my objective today. I want to be as helpful for you as I can possibly be. I'm going to share the things that have been helpful for me in my past because I know they will be helpful for you in your future. Now, I know that I'm preaching to the choir when I say this to you because everybody in this room knows the absolute importance of the people that are in this room. Everybody in this room knows that there's a reason why parents are banging down that front door to get their kids to go to Jay Shideler. Okay? Everybody knows that there's a reason why. And maybe you guys don't know this, but as someone in the district that's not in this building, I have never once heard a negative thing about the staff or about the culture here at Jay Shideler. Not once. And for that, my hat's off to you. We all know how good you guys are at your job. But that being said, I did spend a decade teaching kindergarten. And is that not just the most unfortunate looking Dorothy you've ever seen? But when I was teaching kindergarten over 10 years in 3 different buildings, I noticed that there's something different about the elementary school versus the high school level. Okay, number one, high school is easier. Okay, there's a reason that I went from elementary to high school. Right? But number two, at the high school level, when we have problems, they generally end up on CJ Online. And when we have problems, they generally end up on WIBW's Twitter feed. At the elementary school level, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what it was like in all the buildings that I taught in. At the elementary school level, those problems tended to be kind of under the surface. They tended to be more relationship problems and staff problems. And I'm kind of seeing some knowing looks and nodding heads around the room. So I think I might be off to the right track. So I have an exercise for you now that I'm going to have you all do. Last year, I started doing like some speaking at conferences and stuff, and I really enjoyed doing it. And one guy that's kind of been helping me out said, if you want to be a speaker, the one thing you have to do is you have to find out the biggest problem and attack it, because that's all people really care about. So I need to find out what the biggest problem is. Okay? On your desk, and don't take one yet, but on your desk you have some index cards. And if you didn't grab one, I've got some extra ones right up there by that speaker. I want you to think of at least one, no more than 3, of the biggest problems that you can think that your building has. And I want you to put those down on paper. Okay? Now, don't take them yet. Don't take them yet, because there's a couple other instructions. Okay? Do not put your name on these. Okay? This is 100% anonymous. The second instruction is do not be nice. That's not the idea here. The idea is find out what the underlying problem is in your building, because every building has them. Every building has problems. And we're going to do this for a couple reasons. It gives me an idea of what we're going to work on today. I know teacher burnout was part of it, but in all honesty, that's going to be just a little bit of what we talk about today. What you put on your cards is mainly what we're going to talk about today. Okay? And then the second reason that we're going to do this is I can take these cards. Again, they don't have your name on them. She doesn't know your handwriting. I can take these things, and before I leave, I can hand them to Mrs. Lucero. And so she knows exactly what she needs to work on before day one even comes. So when you are finished with this card, you just turn it upside down, hide your answers like somebody's trying to cheat off you, right? And then turn it upside down. Once it's upside down, I'll know you're finished, and I'll come around and take it up from you. You have 60 seconds. Go. 60 seconds. The most important problem will come to you first. There's some more up here. And Mr. Freeman, you grab one too, please.
I already told her what I wrote down.
But you didn't tell me.
I said out loud.
Okay.
Terrible principal.
Oh, yeah. Understood.
I think that's everybody.
Here, high up.
Mine too.
I tell you what, if you haven't finished yet, that doesn't mean I don't want to hear it, but we got to get moving because I started a couple minutes late. I want to get you guys out of here on time. But I'm seeing like I could have handed out one, maybe 2 or 3 cards, and they pretty much all have the same answer. Okay? I'm looking through here, and luckily I have that elementary experience because like this is exactly what we had in my buildings that I was in before. Okay, here are some of the things that I'm looking at. Intervention, we need an intervention flow chart. End of the day procedures, gossip, lack of grace for each other, staff judging one another, a staff that isn't united, unclear and unknown procedures, trust. Pretty much all of these are the same version of themselves, right? And you know what's crazy? It's like that everywhere. Okay, every elementary school that I've worked in, every elementary school that I've gone and I've talked to on a day like today, thank you, has dealt with some form of those same issues. And the good news is all of these things, guys, all of these are fixable problems. Okay, we can fix every one of these things. And this is something that we can even conquer in a hurry. Oops, lost my slideshow. We can conquer this in a hurry if we can get everybody rowing. That's weird. Okay, get everybody rowing in the same direction. Okay, now I'm going to talk about them here in just a second, but I want you to think about how many people are on your grade level team.
4.
Got 4 people on your grade level team. Put those 4 people in a canoe, right? And they're all rowing towards some goal. But then you got one joker in the back that's rowing backwards and slapping that paddle on the water, right? It makes it a lot harder to get to wherever you want to go, doesn't it? Now everybody's trying to point fingers and say who's the one that's paddling in the wrong direction, right? Okay, so that's... and that's why we're here today. Some of you don't even have paddles anymore. But if we want to get to where we want to go, guys, we got to get everybody rowing in the same direction. Now let's talk about these 2 cuties for a second. Okay, these are my twin 6-year-olds. They go to school here in District. We live over by Auburn, so that's where they go. And they're everything to me. They're my world. And my daughter is absurdly good for a 6-year-old at doing puzzles. And so we'll spend hours working on this enormous 200-piece frozen puzzle of Elsa. And we get close to the end, and then the unthinkable happens. What is it? There's a piece missing. There always, in our house anyway, there always seems to be at least one piece that's missing. And that one piece that's missing marred this beautiful image. We spent hours on this thing. We spent lots of effort on this thing. But one missing piece ruined it for everybody. And the wrestling team that I coach at Washburn Rural, your team here at Jay Shideler, they are much like that frozen puzzle. We need all of these pieces to be complete in order for the puzzle to be beautiful. Now, on my team, the pieces are my wrestlers. On your team, the pieces are your administrators and your staff. And that's why it's important. And I saw this as a recurring theme in here. There's no teamwork. Okay? I saw that there's no teamwork. And that's why it's so important that we all understand the responsibility we have of being the best teammate or puzzle piece that we can possibly be. Okay? Now, in 2011, I took over the Rural Wrestling Program, and there's no good way to say it. We were bad. We were really, really bad. We had not won a tournament in 16 years, and had not had a winning record since 1996. Think about what you were doing in 1996. That was a while ago, right? Okay, now, it was so bad. It was so bad that I called. It was so bad that I called my greatest mentor after I had applied and I had interviewed, and he told me, "Don't take that job. Washburn Rural is a place where you cannot win. Too many rich kids." And based on past results and current demographics, he was right. Now, I understand there's kids at this school that don't know where their next meal's coming from. I understand we have kids in this district that are on free and reduced lunch. I understand you got some kids that probably had a hard time finding a place to stay tonight. Okay? But let's be real for a second. Let's be honest with ourselves. 437-8501 is not the same thing. Okay? And the kids in this district have some inherent advantages over kids in other districts. And what I found when I got to Washburn Rural was that those kids that have nothing, those are the kids that would run through a wall for me. Those kids that had everything handed to them their entire lives. Those kids that drive nicer cars than the teachers. Those, seriously, walk through our parking lot. Those are the kids that I had to teach how to be a great teammate. And I realized if we were going to reach our potential, if we were going to succeed, I had to teach all of them how to be great teammates. Now, this is a graph of the state points that we scored since we arrived in 2007. Steady increase to where we almost won the state championship last year. And I attribute a lot of our success to the fact that our coaching staff spends a great deal of time teaching our kids how to be great teammates. We don't have any better athletes than anybody else. We got better teammates, though, and that's why we're successful. Okay, so some of you are probably thinking, well, that's great, Coach, but you're talking about dealing with kids. That is true, but what are adults? Adults are nothing but big kids. Right? Adults bring a lot of the same problems to the table that kids do. I want you to think about all the teams that you are currently a member of. You've got your small ones and you got your big ones. You got your grade level team, you got your building level team, you got your district level team, you got your team in your house, you got your team in your church, you got your team in your cul-de-sac and in your neighborhood. I bet you can think of at least one person on that team that never pitches in extra. I bet you can think of somebody on one of those teams that pouts when they get feedback from an authority figure. I bet you can think of one person on that team that doesn't do anything other than what's required because it's not my job. Right? Adults, as well as kids, often struggle with the idea of being a good teammate. And so today I'm going to discuss what I've found to be the 8 traits of a valuable quality teammate, and these traits will help you in your building become more successful and productive. Now, if you look at the note sheet that I put on your page, or on your table, on this note sheet, I made it very, very easy for you. I gave an outline. If you see something up here on the board today that has a number next to it, write those words next to the number. If you see something that's in italics, write it on that little subheading underneath. You don't have to write a whole lot, but there are a few specific words I want you to remind yourself of down the road. So if you didn't get one of these sheets, we have some extras up here and up on the front. But we're going to start with trait number 1 of a quality teammate. And a quality teammate will believe in the team concept. So write that down on your paper. A quality teammate believes in the team concept. And I regularly stress to my team that our team is made up of a collection of individuals, yes, but no one of those individuals is more important than us collectively, because it is the team that accomplishes great things. It is not the individual. In fact, as posted in our mat room, if we have any Kansas State fans in here, you've probably heard of the 16 goals of success. From one end of the room to the other is 84 feet. 84 feet. 82 of those feet are covered by a giant banner that has Bill Snyder's 16 goals, and that's kind of what we modeled our program around. Like I I said, I'm a thief. I steal all the time, even from football coaches. And that first one up on our wall, sorry, it's glared, it says commitment. Commitment to common goals and to being successful. And your team here at Jay Shideler is no different than Kansas State. It's no different than my wrestling team. Everybody in here is a part of something that is much bigger than themselves, because nothing was ever accomplished alone. I want you to think of all the amazing things that you've accomplished in your life, and then think of the people that helped you get there. I want you to try to think of one huge life accomplishment that you did with no help from anybody. Let me speed things up for you. It can't be done. Okay? It can't be done, because even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, right? I have never, thinking about thinking that you can go at something alone, guys, that's unwise and it's a surefire way to fail, because I have never in my life seen someone win some kind of award, get called to the podium, lean into the microphone and say, I have no one to thank. I did this all by myself. It doesn't happen. Teamwork is essential. And now, here's an example on how we can do this. Write this down on your sheet. There is power in numbers. There's power in numbers. Okay, let's see. Do me a favor. Stand up for me, please. Stand up for me, please. All right, tell everybody your name, just in case. The building I work, just one person. That's all I need. It's her versus the group, okay? Good one. Okay. It's her versus the group. All right, now, there's power in numbers, and we're going to demonstrate this right now. What's your name?
Mrs. Legletter? No, Kelly.
Kelly, okay. All right, and like I said, I always have people tell their names, even though it's a small group, because believe it or not, in one school, I spent 7 years teaching kindergarten, and I did not know the name of every teacher in my building, which is inexcusable. Okay? I still don't know the name of every teacher at Washburn Row. Okay? And granted, we have 200, that's a little bit different, but still, we need to get to know each other. Okay, here's how it works. Can you clean a catfish?
No.
Can anybody in the room clean a catfish? Okay, the group gets 1 point. Can you change a spare tire in a car?
No.
No. Can anybody in the room change a spare tire? Okay, groups ahead 2-0. Okay, can you run 2 miles without stopping?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got one. Anybody in the group run 2 miles without stopping? Okay, scores 3-1. Okay, can you use Photoshop?
Yes.
Okay, anybody in the room? Okay, 4-2. Can you build a website?
With the help of my husband.
Okay, but by yourself, can you build a website? No. Anybody in the room? Okay, you see where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
right? Okay, there is, you can take a seat. Give her a hand. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, I've got a list of like 10 things, and I'm short on time today, so I'm going to cut it short. But inevitably, that always happens. The group always overtakes the individual. And except for one time, there's only one time that I've ever done this where the individual was the winner. I had this young lady in high school that stood up, and she could do everything. She could clean a catfish, she could change a spare tire, she could change her oil, she could do all this stuff. And it just completely blew my example out of the water. But I couldn't help but think, like, this girl is going to make some young man very, very happy. Or quite possibly very, very miserable someday. But here at Jay Shideler, you are surrounded by an enormous pool of talent. Be smart. Tap into it. Everybody sitting at your table, everybody in this room has some kind of skill that can help you out along your journey. And it's important for you to understand that your team can greatly benefit from that. Number 2 on your sheet in the list of valuable traits for teammates is valuable teammates exhibit selfless behavior. This is something I want all my wrestlers to understand and display. Unfortunately, it's a lot more difficult today because in today's mainstream society, we've put forth a message that is get yours. Go get yours. And this makes it a lot harder for administrators and for leaders because they're trying to get people to work selflessly when they're being told constantly to be selfish. Getting people to exhibit selfless behavior is not an easy proposition in this world. So now we're going to talk about how to cultivate that selfless mindset. And the first way is to do the grunt work. Write that down on your paper. Do the grunt work. That term grunt work refers to those tasks that are not fun. They're sometimes difficult, but they're not very glamorous. Nobody likes to do them, but they need to be done. And every group needs somebody that's willing to jump in, get their hands dirty, and do whatever it takes to get that job done. And the more people that are willing to jump in and do grunt work, the easier it is for your team to have success. Now, on my team, we give out a Wrestler of the Week t-shirt. And this is the highest honor that one of my wrestlers can get. The catch is, it never goes to a varsity kid. It only goes to JV wrestlers. And the reason is, they have the unenviable task of preparing those varsity guys and being practice dummies. Like, their job is to get beat up. And they don't get in the team picture, and they don't get the medal around their neck, and they don't get to pick up the trophy. So we give them a t-shirt, right? And this is a way that we can teach our kids the importance of being a selfless teammate. And when they get honored in front of everybody, That is a big flipping deal in our program. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that you guys can do grunt work. Every single building is going to be different, but some examples would be volunteer for committees, even though it's outside of the duty day. And we all know that one person that won't do stuff outside of the duty day, don't we? Okay, you can make a pot of coffee for the morning in the group. You can clean up a mess that somebody else left. You can set up tables and chairs for the meeting, put them away afterwards, help a coworker finish a project. You got music concerts coming up in the spring? Okay? Help out your music teacher. Help out your custodian. Put those chairs away when it's done. Don't just make a beeline for the door. All of these things are examples of grunt work. And one thing that you'll find is that when you start doing the grunt work, it rubs off on other people. 2 years ago, we were in Kansas City, and I took my team out to eat at Fazoli's after the tournament. I get off the bus first. I'll never forget this. I'm walking in, and on the sidewalk, there's a crushed empty pack of Newport cigarettes and a crushed Monster energy drink can. And I didn't think anything about it. I'm walking, it's on the ground, so I picked it up and I put it in the trash can. And I go and I pull that door open, and I turn around, and my whole team and coaching staff is out picking up trash in the parking lot. When you do the grunt work, you don't have to tell people to do the grunt work. When you do the grunt work, it rubs off on them, and they will do it themselves. Now, the next thing you need to remember, number 3 on your list, the next thing on the subheading is it's not about me. This is such an important concept, guys. It is not about me. Now, I am a Shriner. Anybody know what a Shriner is? Okay. And it's not all just funny hats and tiny motorcycles. Okay. The Shriners, the point behind Shriners is they raise money for children's hospitals, mainly for kids that are burn victims or that have orthopedic issues so that they can receive care 100% free of cost. And a couple of years ago, I was out in Hayes. They had the Shrine Bowl football game. And I was at the banquet the night before. And I'm sitting across, like they've got the kids out eating with Shriners, parents, all that stuff. I'm sitting across just this mountain of a high school kid, right? And I noticed on the back of his phone he had a sticker. And I asked him about it and took a picture of it. And it said, INAM. INAM. I said, what does that stand for? And he said, it's not about me. How genius is this? The coach of that team, who has these 90 kids that all think that they're just Billy Badass because they're playing in this all-star football game, he knew that they picked up their phones 200 times a day. And so this is a constant reminder that it ain't about you. We are here for a greater purpose. Right? So cool, right? Total genius. Now, I would suggest that you guys do the same. Find a place to post this thing. I have it posted. This is the door that leads out into the locker room from my office. I just wrote it on an empty envelope and stuck it up there so that every day when I go to work and I open that door, I remember it's not about me. I'm part of something that's bigger than myself. Okay? And then the next thing is don't worry about who gets the credit. It continuously amazes me. Continuously amazes me how you'll hear about teams that are having success, but you'll have individuals who are unhappy. Okay? You'll have people that say oh yeah, well we won the game, the coach didn't mention me in the newspaper. Or you'll have people that say, yeah, the presentation went great, but my boss told Jane good job and he didn't say the same thing to me. Okay? You'll hear people say oh well we resolved the problem and the parents are happy, but it was my idea and nobody knows it. People that need to be recognized for everything, they make poor team members. The people that you want on your team are the people that handle those things and show maturity and are only concerned about moving that team forward and rowing in the same direction. And they're enthusiastic about whatever it is that makes the team better. Now, just this past January, we had a very, very special day. It might have been a historic day in Kansas wrestling. Our varsity team went to a tournament at Shawnee Mission South. We won it. We expected to win it. Cool. We sent our JV team. We sent our JV team to a varsity tournament. And our JV team beat everybody else's varsity. We won 2 varsity tournaments on the same day. I have never heard of anybody doing that. This was the day that we announced to the state, Washburn Rural is a force to be reckoned with. You better watch out. And we're all riding high. We were clicking on all cylinders, from our lowest man on the totem pole to our highest senior. And we get back on Monday, and I give out that Wrestler of the Week shirt. And I had a kid that was pissed he didn't get it. And it was his practice partner, of all people, that got it. So he was just incensed. And he came up to me afterwards, and he was like, we break from practice, and he comes straight up to me, and he goes, what's he doing that I'm not doing? Why'd he get that award and not me? And my first thought, which I thankfully kept to myself, was, you've got to be kidding me, right? But then I said, okay, well, I've got a really good way that we can solve your dilemma, okay? Go clean out your locker, give me all of your equipment, and then you don't have to worry about these long practices anymore. Then you don't have to worry about T-shirts. You don't have to worry about holding up trophies or getting your name in the paper. You can just do what all the other kids do after school. Okay? And he got the message. Okay? Because that kid that's underneath him on the totem pole would have loved that opportunity to be where he was. Okay? So he got the message, he left without another word, because he understood that individual claim does not matter and team success does. Now, I understand we all like to be acknowledged when we do something well. That's human nature. However, it's important to realize that when you're a part of a team, a lot of your work, guys, is going to go unrecognized. That's just how it is. And when this happens, you got to deal with it. Again, that word maturity keeps coming up. You got to deal with it in a positive and mature way and ask yourself, is our Jay Shideler team having success? And if the answer to that question is yes, then pat yourself on the back, because that's what really matters. Number 3 on your sheet is respect everyone. Respect everyone. Now, my first year at Roll, I told you we were bad. We had 3 state qualifiers. The next year we had a huge jump. We set a school record and had 12 kids qualify for state. So going into year 3, we were feeling pretty dang good about ourselves, right? We thought, like, this is the first time we can legitimately have the conversation that we might win state this year, right? And then it all came crashing down. We tanked. Everything unraveled. We never came close to reaching that potential or those goals. And the biggest factor behind our demise that year was the lack of respect we had for one another. Okay? We had constant catfighting between kids that were essentially grown men. Kids on a team old enough to vote, and they're talking trash, catfighting. They'd be nice to each other when they were face to face, but then when that person would leave, then I could hear them through the wall talking about that kid the second he left. Right? And all that kind of infighting just brought about the demise of a really, really good wrestling team. Now, it's not possible for everybody to like their teammates. Again, that's just human nature, and that doesn't mean that your team is doomed. But what will doom your team is when team members, like my team that year, don't put effort into valuing each other and your common goals. So at that point, instead of having 3 people rowing in one direction, one person rowing the other way, we would have 2 people rowing this way and 2 people rowing that way. And then where does that get you? Just going around in circles. And that's what we did that year, and that was the year that made me contemplate resigning. I was only 3 years in because of the constant this. It was miserable for everybody. That brought our team down. So what we realized was that we have to have common goals, right? And do you guys have common goals here at Jay Shideler? And I ain't talking mission statements, okay? Do you have clearly defined, like, this is what we want to get done as a team this year? Thumbs up or thumbs down? I know we're afraid to put those thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. If the answer is okay, Mr. Lucero, there you go. There's goal number 1. Okay, get that done. We have to have a common goal that we can all work for. And once that's accomplished, and to reach those goals, it's imperative for everyone to put away all of those personal differences that I know that we have and create an atmosphere that's rich in mutual respect and cooperation. Okay, and the next thing to understand is that everyone affects team morale. Everyone does. Now, earlier I told you to respect who? Everyone. Respect everyone. I didn't say show respect to those people that have been teaching as long as you. I didn't say show respect to those people that are only in your grade level. And I didn't say any of that stuff. I said show respect to everyone, because each person, every single one of you, has a direct impact on the culture that you have in this building. So, Ms. Lucero, this next part is directed almost solely at you. Okay? But everybody else, you guys need to tune in because you're going to hold her accountable. Okay? Earlier I said, who needs a coach? Everyone needs a coach. Teachers can coach administrators just like administrators can coach teachers. My wrestlers coach me every single day. Okay? Everyone needs a coach. So you guys are going to help her accountable, hold her accountable. Okay? As team leader, it is solely your responsibility to build team unity in this building. That is your job from here on out. Start by establishing performance levels and standards that everybody in here clearly understands. And that's something I saw in these cards. Like, that's one area where we could use a little bit of work. Okay? And when you see behaviors, this is probably the most important part. When you see behaviors that are endangering team unity, people showing up late, okay? People arguing with each other, people gossiping, you've got to squash that immediately. And here's the tweetable for you. Okay? Remember this one. The success of a team is predicated by the worst behaviors its leaders are willing to tolerate. Say that again. The success of a team is predicated by the worst behaviors its leaders are willing to tolerate. On my wrestling team, we have 3 rules. And you don't need to write these down, but this is just us. Number 1, be on time. Number 2, respect everyone. And number 3, live our standard. Okay? Live our standard. We have a certain set of consequences that goes along with every one of those rules. We start the clap at 3:15 on the dot every single day. They know that. And they know that if they walk in at 3:15 and 1 second, they don't have to hand me a pass. They don't give me an excuse. They don't need to be told to do it. They drop down and they do 25 up downs because that's the expectation. and they just understand that that's what we do. So developing unity starts at the top, so make it a priority to model it every day, because when you treat people with respect, it has a trickle-down effect on others. Now, building team unity with my team is always difficult, as I'm sure it is here, because I'm sure we've got some teachers that have been teaching for 30 years and some that this is their first year. And everybody comes from so many different walks of life, but you have to make the effort to do it. So we'll take days off from practice to go bowling, or we'll do lava yoga. Like last year, I took the guys out to Sky Zone during a practice. Okay? Or you could also do, like, if you're at my April 2nd presentation, you saw the brag board. That's a great way to build team unity. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but I can later if you want me to. But you know what works best, and this is going to sound crazy. What works best for building team unity? Have a happy hour and make it mandatory. Okay, now, imbibing isn't necessarily mandatory, but attendance is. And what you'll find is your negative Nancy's will come out of the woodwork. Okay, your negative Nancy's will come up with every reason why they can't make it. They can't find a babysitter. The kid's got practice, blah, blah, blah. But the kids that are, or the people that are positive, don't bring kids to the happy hour. The people that are great team members, they will find every reason to make it there. They will find a way to make it happen. And if nothing else, that's a great place to have a PLC day. Now, the reason is, and seriously, I'm absolutely serious. And I know that that's not the PLC thing, or the PC thing you're supposed to say at a PD day, to go out and have a happy hour, but they are not paying me to be here, so whatever. And I think you could all agree with me that, like, at this point of the year, as teacher burnout setting in, we could all probably use a drink. And maybe not at 10 in the morning, but soon, right? Maybe. Still looking at bottom desk drawer. Okay, now, Advisors Excel. Anybody familiar with that company? Advisors Excel. It's one of the fastest growing, most popular companies in Topeka. My wife works there. She's a manager there. And it is a required part of her job. It is mandatory for her to schedule once a month a mandatory happy hour, because that's where they really get to know each other. That's what builds team unity. And there's a reason that they throw more applications in the trash than anybody else. It's because people are just dying to work there, right? It's a great idea to get some conversation between coworkers. Okay, and the number 4 trait is to handle adversity in your professional life and in your personal life. It is not a question of whether adversity is going to happen. It's a question of when. And if you think about it, you really only have 2 options when adversity strikes. Number 1 is to wallow in self-pity, and number 2 is to do something about it and make the situation better. Now, keep in mind, it is easy to be energetic, it's easy to be upbeat when your team is on top. But when you're struggling, that's what really reveals your true character. Now, around my program, we have a phrase that we use all the time, and that phrase is, what an opportunity. What an opportunity. I tell my kids we are on a first-name basis. You can call me by my first name. My first name is Mr. or Coach. My first name is not Hey. And so the first time a kid comes in the room and he says, hey, Parker. And I say, oh my gosh, what an opportunity for you to learn about respecting your elders. Give me 25 push-ups, right? And then he figures that out in a hurry. What an opportunity for him. Okay? And this past season, my team was very, very good, and we lost to a team, Olathe South, that quite frankly was not on our level. They weren't as good as us, but that night they were. And I bring the guys together at the end after the handshakes, and I could tell they were just fearing the thunder, right? They thought I was going to lay into them. I said, what an opportunity. You guys are ranked number 1 in the state, and you just got beat by a team that's ranked number 10. What an opportunity for you to realize that you ain't as good as you think you are. And we got some things that we need to work on. Okay? Now, 3 years ago, I had a team member, he was my team captain for the wrestling team, that worked his whole life to get his name on this wall. If you can't see it, it's our Washington Monroe Wrestling State Placers. If you place at the state tournament, you get your name on that wall. It's essentially etched in stone. We tell our kids that they can bring their grandkids back to see it someday. It's a big deal. And this dude did everything he could. He wasn't very athletic, but he really worked on those skills. He mowed lawns for all summer so he could raise $1,200 so he could go to an elite level wrestling camp. He never missed a summer workout. He was always there for our open mat sessions. And he was a captain of the football team too. And the summer before his senior year, he was doing a non-contact football practice. He was just going out and catching passes. And he cut this way to go catch a pass, and he blew out his knee, tore his ACL. Now, like for most kids, this is a career ender. Okay? And for those that are lucky enough to have it not be a career ender, these kids go through 6 to 9 months of rehab. And with the timeline of the way it happened, or when it happened, that means that he's going to miss his entire senior year of football and miss his entire senior year of wrestling and be good enough to walk across the stage at graduation. Okay? Now, I realize that most of us in here didn't play high school football, okay? But you've been around boys that have. If you've been around those boys, you know that this is probably the worst thing that could happen to that kid in his world, right? Having that taken away from him. And I went and I saw him in the hospital right after he'd had his surgery, and he was shook, man. Like this was as broken down as I had ever seen Mr. Positivity, who this kid was. There's a reason he was our captain. And he broke down and cried for the first time I'd ever seen him cry. And I just grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, "What an opportunity!" And he said, "Coach, stop lying to me. Usually you say that, and I believe you. But now I know you're lying. And you're just trying to make me feel better. There's no way that this could be an opportunity for me right now." I said, "You are so wrong. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either you are going to absolutely crush this rehab and beat the healing curve to come back and maybe wrestle at regionals and state your senior year. You'll probably have to miss football, but maybe you can get in for the end of the wrestling season. Or you're going to become a captain that now has to lead by words rather than example. And either way, you're going to leave a legacy on this team that we talk about forever. And that's the kind of thing that they make movies about. Now, they haven't made a movie about Braden yet, but you have all seen him. You have seen him on the back of every magazine in town. You've seen him on every billboard in town. And you've seen him on the side of every bus in town. And the reason you've seen him is that through his ridiculous, relentless work ethic, that he came in twice a day for rehab when he was only supposed to do one. That 6 to 9 months got trimmed down to 8 weeks. 2 months after a full ACL tear, he was the starting linebacker against Junction City High School. Okay? And then, at the senior banquet, he's given his farewell speech, which all of my wrestlers give a farewell speech of their senior year. And he's talking into the microphone to the crowd about how important wrestling had been in his life and all the life lessons he taught. And then he gave an impassioned directive to the crowd. He leans into the microphone and he says, "On a long enough timeline, all of us will face some form of adversity that seems insurmountable. And when this happens, you have 2 choices. You can either feel sorry for yourself and drown in a pool of self-pity, or you can tell yourself," and then he looks me right in the eyes and he says, "You can tell yourself, what an opportunity." This is something that translates very well to the elementary classroom. All of us need to realize that any kind of adversity we have is just an opportunity for growth. So take those words, what an opportunity. Post it on your door, post it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. Write WAO and put it on a sticker and put it on your steering wheel so they see it 3 times a day when you get into the car. Okay? Because things will always get better. They always do. Now, next for you, I have some good news and I have some bad news. Okay? And I'm going to give them to you both at once. Everything's your fault. Everything is your fault. Here's the bad news. If your life sucks, that's your fault. If your relationships suck, that's your fault. But here's the good news. Everything in life is your fault. If your relationships are great, that is your fault. If you understand that Capers isn't going to take care of you, so you're socking away some extra money, that's your fault. Nobody else did that for you. Right? If your life is overflowing with joy and with happiness, that is your fault. Everything in your life is your fault. Now, what if you get hit by that bus that has Braden on the side? Okay. Now, that probably is not your fault, but you know what is your fault? Well, it might be unless you don't cross. Yeah. But if you do get hit by that bus, or you do get cancer, or you do get some kind of terrible disease, or something awful happens to you that isn't your fault, what is your fault?
How do you react?
How you react to it. Absolutely. How you handle that situation is 100% your fault. All you can focus on is focusing on what you can control, right? We've all seen Apollo 13, right? I know it's probably been a while, but do you remember like after that famous line where he says, "Houston, we have a problem," like everybody's running around the control room, screaming, going nuts until the mission commander, he says, whoa, everybody, people, work the problem. And then that refocuses everybody, and they focus on, okay, what's the problem, and how are we going to solve it? Now, working the problem is exactly what needs to happen when this team experiences adversity. So Don't waste time pointing fingers or laying blame on other people or worrying about factors outside of your control. Instead, channel your energy and efforts into the situation that's in front of you. Now, the fifth part, the fifth trait for every valuable teammate is someone who can adapt to change. Change is inevitable. We all know that. And Mr. Freeman's done a fantastic job here at Jay Shideler, and many of you are probably apprehensive about the change you got coming down the line. But your ability to adapt to changes will have a direct impact on how your team navigates through them. And Charles Darwin once said, "It is not the strongest of species that survives, nor is it the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptive to change." So, Mrs. Lucero, again, this part is for you as well. Leaders must manage change because not only is change inevitable, it is also scary. And I think you would all agree with me that the older we get, the scarier it becomes because people like things the way that they are. People like things comfortable and predictable. And when change occurs, it disrupts our routine, it throws our life off balance. And as a principal, it's important to understand that change will cause anxiety for your teachers. Okay, so your job right off the bat is to minimize that anxiety by calmly navigating your team through those waters. And the worst thing that a new leader can do, whether it be a new manager, a new principal, whatever, worst thing you can do is throw a bunch of change at them without any kind of warning or plan of action, because it's like giving them the ice bucket challenge. Because at first it causes discomfort, and then it causes pain. Okay, so when you manage change and you do it correctly, it's not quite as jarring, and teachers are a lot more open to it. So one way to do this is to keep teachers as informed as possible, ask for questions, ask for them to coach you as well. Now, when I first got hired at Rural, I told you about that mentor that told me not to take the job. He later said, well, if you're going to take that job, the best thing you can do is surround yourself with smart people who will argue with you every single day. And so that's what I did. I took our assistant coaches, I hired a great staff, and I told them at our first staff meeting, I said, your job, your number one job, is to come up with a way that's better than mine. Your job is to complain every single day. You have to complain about everything that we do, but there's a catch. What does that complaint have to come with? Solution. Exactly, that's the word. Complaint has to come with a solution, because if you complain without a solution, you are bitching, and bitching is cancerous. Bitching will destroy a team, okay? Don't bitch. Complain with a solution, all right? Okay, and so, there you go, put it on a t-shirt, that's great. Okay, and again, a lot of the best ideas that I've had for our program didn't come from me. I stole them from my assistants. Okay, now the next part, this is directed at everybody in the room except for Mrs. Lucero. Team members. Team members must embrace change. Psychologist Kevin Elko describes the place where people get together and complain and be negative. He calls that the duck pond. And what happens at the duck pond? A whole lot of quacking, doesn't it? Okay? And this is generally what happens whenever you get some kind of change implemented on a team. Now, do you all have a duck pond here? Yes, you do. I know what's up, and I can tell you at least where 3 of those duck ponds are. You got a bench where you all sit during recess? Okay, that's duck pond number 1. Do you guys have a teacher's lounge? Okay, that's duck pond number 2. Do you guys have PLC meetings where administrators are not present? Okay, that would be duck pond number 3. Okay, that's just how it works. That's real, and I bet if you think about it, you can come up with some other duck ponds where people sit around and quack a whole lot. Right? Hallway, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, but here's the thing: those people that insist that there is no duck pond, those are the people that usually quack the loudest. All right? Okay. Now, initially, people. Oh my gosh, guys, this part is so important. So important. Initially, people that are unhappy with change, they always do this, and don't say it out loud, but I know you can think of an example. They're unhappy with change, and they want to get together with other people that feel the same way. They want to get with other people that feel the same way. The theme seems to be, let's be miserable together. And there is nothing that is more destructive to a team than people who need other people to be miserable. That is cancer for your team. They may think it's therapeutic, but it does nothing to move the team forward. And Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are probably right. Okay? And the quicker you adopt a positive attitude towards change, teachers, and cast away all of those negative conversations, the quicker you will be able to quit quacking and start moving your team forward. Change is coming in the next year. It is inevitable. It's the only constant in our life is change. Don't be surprised by it. I've had 7 principals in 16 different years of teaching. But initially it's uncomfortable, but it gets easier over time. Okay? And the 6th best trait of a quality teammate is to be able to accept feedback. Is anybody in this room on the evaluation cycle this year? Yay, McCrell, right? You guys use McCrell? Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. I'm on the cycle too. But whether you are or you aren't, regardless, everybody's gone through some kind of evaluation where we've been judged or we've been critiqued by somebody who's above us, right? When I started teaching kindergarten, I got to be honest. When I started teaching kindergarten, I sucked. I was terrible. I wish I could go back and I apologize to all those poor kids that didn't get a great start to their public education. But about halfway through the year, my administrator, who's now, or my principal, who's now the superintendent of Platte County, Missouri School District, he's a great leader. He called me into his office and he told me that he was going to put me on a PIP. Anybody know what a PIP is? Well, we call it performance improvement, but yeah, same thing. He just told me that I was going to be put on a PIP. And while this meeting was taking place, I'm a young, hotshot 22-year-old, and I thought I had all the answers to the world. And I started getting defensive. I started trying to poke holes in his argument, and I tuned out all of his efforts to see that he was trying to make me better, right? And I just tried to insist that I was right and he was wrong. And he interrupted me and he said, look, Parker, I want you to succeed. Okay? I want you to do well here. I want to keep you here. I hired you, and I took a lot of flack for hiring a male kindergarten teacher. But here's the thing. Like, my job is to give you feedback, and your job is to nod your head and say, okay. And then after that, your job is to implement it. So the way I see it is you've got 2 options. You can either take my feedback and accept it and implement it, or you can GTFO. You don't have to write that one down. And I bet you can figure out what that stands for. Yeah. And this was the point where I realized the importance of being able to accept feedback, right? Critique and criticism are still very much a part of my life. I get evaluated every, whatever it is, 4 years as a teacher. I get evaluated every year as a coach. And my wife provides me with a variety of feedback on issues when I get home. But for all of the teachers here at Jay Shideler to be successful, feedback on your performance is necessary. Mr. Freeman and Mrs. Lucero, they don't have the luxury of watching you guys on tape like I do with my wrestlers. But when they can come in and observe you, and they can provide you with the tools that you need to be successful. So don't think of them as someone that's waiting for you to make a mistake. Think of them as someone who cares about you and wants you to be better at what you do. Raise your hand if you are a perfect teacher. Raise your hand if you have 0 room for improvement. Okay, we're all on the same page. We're all realistic. If you got that kind of attitude, then feedback is not something to be afraid of. In fact, it's part of learning and part of growth. Now, how many of you would like to be better at your job? Like, hopefully all of us? Great, good. Then feedback on performance is necessary. Now, I love nature documentaries. Okay? Planet Earth is one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. And what I found on one of these documentaries is so cool. There's someone that's at the top of the food chain that's an herbivore. Doesn't eat meat, but they never get eaten. Anybody know what that animal is? Got a guess? It's the rhino. The rhino never gets eaten. When it gets harassed, it just kind of grunts at its attackers, and every once in a while it'll give a half-assed charge. The rhino never gets eaten. Why do you think that is? That's the answer I always get, is that big old horn. That's not it. Cows have horns. I ate a cow last night. Okay? Water buffalo have horns, and they get eaten all the time. The reason the rhino never gets eaten is because it has 3-inch thick skin that is absolutely impenetrable. Nothing can take down a rhinoceros. So, when you receive feedback, do you have thick skin like a rhino, or do you have thin skin like the zebra? Are you tough, or are you a mark? Too many people allow feedback that's intended to help them penetrate them to their core, and they take it personally, and it's not healthy, and it's not productive. And I keep this on my desk at all times. It's a little 1-inch plastic rhinoceros. Okay? And every time that I look at this thing, it reminds me that I need to be receptive to feedback, whether it comes from my administrators or from my teachers or even from my students. So what my suggestion is, I brought an extra one today. Miss Lucero, this one is for you. And what I would suggest to you is go to the toy store. You know the one over on 21st? Okay, go to the toy store. They sell those for 99 cents. Whenever you are doing an evaluation with someone, beforehand, give them one of those. I'm serious. I use this every single day. Okay, give it to them so that they can keep it on their desk. And it's not big and it's not obnoxious, but it's a constant reminder that feedback is important. But we have to have, forgot to click it, have to have rhino skin. Right? So write that down on your paper. Okay, and the seventh trait of a valuable teammate is someone that demonstrates high energy. Now, what's the difference between a talent and a skill? Everybody know? A skill is something you can develop. A talent is something that you are born with. Some kids come out of the womb and can dribble a basketball. Okay? Some kids have to practice for years to do it. Because breaking news, not all people are created equal. It is an absolute fact that some of us were blessed with more natural abilities than others. Some people are better at teaching math. Some people are better at developing human connections. Some people have better hair, or they're faster, or any hair, or they're taller or smarter. We all have a certain hand that we were dealt, that we have little to no control over. But regardless of what talents God has blessed you with, everyone in this room has absolute control over the level of energy and effort you bring to your endeavors every single day. And I would encourage you to have Bill Snyder enthusiasm. Write this down on your paper. Now, I am not talking about this dude. I'm not talking about that old football coach. If you know Bill Snyder, if you've listened to his press conferences, he is as dry as a saltine. Instead, I am talking about Bill Snyder, my dog. My dog, that old gray dog, as an avid K-State football fan, I named my dog Bill Snyder Family Dog. And the thing that I admire the most about him is his enthusiastic demeanor. Every single morning, I saw a copy of the Miracle Morning book there, love that. Every single morning I wake up at 4:25 in the morning and I go for a run. And every single day when I strap on that headlamp so I can see around the neighborhood, Bill Snyder Family Dog sees me put that on, and he goes running to the front door like it's the most exciting thing that he has ever done in his life. And I know this time of year, guys, we get stuck in a rut where we're just moving through the day with the energy of a slug, just waiting for 3:45 to roll around. But remember, enthusiasm is a choice. Bill Snyder does not care if it's raining. Bill Snyder Family Dog does not care if it's cold outside. Bill Snyder Family Dog does not care what happened yesterday or what might happen today or what might happen tomorrow. All he cares about is the moment, and he is fired up about it. And a successful teacher has the same attitude. We are all here until what, May 24th, right? Or whatever that day is. We are all here until then, no matter what. If you drag through those days, it makes them go longer. If you approach your day with Bill Snyder enthusiasm, we can get through them a heck of a lot quicker and have some fun while we do it. Now, I realize there's some days when we don't want to be here. Okay? But remember, your attitudes, your outward projections, guys, all of those things are contagious with the people that you work with. So what do you do on those days when, like, you've got 3 IEP meetings after school, your car wouldn't start, or your kid threw up the night before, or your goiter hurts really bad? What do? You fake it. Exactly. You fake it. Exactly. And it works, not just for you, but for the people around you. I tell my wrestlers, on those days when they don't want to be there, they have one rule. They got to pretend like they do. Okay? Their job, whether it's my wrestlers, my coaches, their job is to pretend that they are auditioning for a play. And the part of that play is they're part of an enthusiastic teammate. And they have to get everyone around them to believe that they are an enthusiastic teammate and convince themselves, because once they convince themselves, they convince everybody else. Now, if you're in a funk, you don't have total control over whatever caused your funk, but you do have control over how you get out of it. Remember, everything in your life is your fault. Control it. And the 8th one is be accountable. The 8th trait is to be accountable. And I think we've just got teachers and admin here, right? But it doesn't matter whether you're certified, classified, whatever. We all have a job to do on our team, right? Everybody has a specific job and responsibilities that go along with it. So don't worry about wasting time on worrying about what other people are doing. Okay? Control your little world. Control what you do with your job, and don't worry about theirs. And don't make excuses. Next one on the board. Don't make excuses. Okay, Benjamin Franklin once said, "He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else." And those words are harsh, but they do ring true, because nobody wants to hear why a job didn't get done. All they want to hear is that people are going to follow through. And making an excuse to justify a poor performance, that can bring down an entire team. I didn't like my high school football coach very much, but he was very good at quotes. And one that he told me once was that excuses are like armpits. Everybody has them, and they all stink. Remember, everyone messes up. Everyone makes mistakes, but you have to be accountable. The key is to admit when you make them, because when you lie about it, people know. When you say, oh, that email must have gone to my junk mail. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. And we know it didn't. And we know you're making an excuse, and it looks terrible on you. People see right through when you try to make an excuse for why you didn't get a job done. And another part of being accountable is making sure that you take accountability for your actions and you don't blame other people. Because blaming other people makes it crystal clear that you're deflecting your poor performance by trying to put somebody else's face on it. Okay? And it does nothing to solve the problem. There's an old saying that anytime you point the finger at somebody else, you've got three fingers pointing back at you. I tell my wrestlers to point the thumb. Because if you point the thumb, if you gesture towards yourself with the thumb, you understand that you played a role in whatever mistake was made. Because like we said, the mistakes are inevitable for every one of us. I've made more than any of you have today, right? But if you point the thumb, you realize that you played a part in it, and it holds you accountable to playing a part in the solution. And then finally, never underestimate the impact that you have on others. Because when you are a piece of the puzzle, you have an impact on everyone that you come in contact with, your kids, your family, your coworkers. From the moment that your feet hit the floor in the morning, you're either going to have a thumbs up or a thumbs down impact on the people that you interact with throughout the day. Your actions, your words, your gestures, your facial expressions, those either convey a positive or a negative message. And like we said, those are contagious. So you can either be a sail that helps move your team along faster than rowing, or we can be that person that rows in the wrong direction. Or worse yet, you can be that person that gets other people to help you throw the anchor overboard. And that choice is yours. Now, I know that Jay Shideler has all the puzzle pieces, and they're all spread out on the table, and from what I've heard and from what you guys have told me, all we got to do is fit them all together. Right? You guys are all right there, and if we can put aside the little differences and the cattiness and the clicks and the things that are on this stack of paper right here, if we can put those things aside, then you guys can create a masterpiece. That can absolutely be done here at Jay Shideler. And key number one is to learn to be a great teammate. So, in closing, please remember this. Every single one of you has the capacity to move people. You have the capacity to inspire them. Every person in this room has the capacity to provide hope to the despondent and direction to the lost. You have the ability to educate and electrify, to inform, and to inspire, but you can finish this year and make this last month the best month of your teaching career, but you have to be willing to take action, and you have to be willing to be a great teammate. So thank you for letting me share today with you. This is like my favorite thing in the world to do. And in the words of Nancy Duarte, remember, the future is not a place that we are going to go. The future is a place that you get to create. So make it a good one. You guys are awesome.
On that note, we're moving on to T-bill.